What is up, y'all? Happy Tuesday, playoff week here in Sacramento. Lot to discuss. I'm Ryan, whatever you want to call me, in Sacktown. Connor is going to join me here in a few minutes. We're going to talk about NBA playoffs, Kings, Warriors, everything in between. All right, to anybody, we're going to squash this in the bud really quick. Really quick. Any of you from Jim Rome's show that are watching, you clones, JTP, everybody that may show up at any point, I am placing a moratorium on what happened today. After these comments, there will be no more. You got to take your shot. You either make it or you miss it. Give me an A, give me an F. I got an F. I will own it. I will take my beatings, go back, lick my wounds, heal up, and I will be back better than ever. Oh, Johnny boy. That's what you guys wanted to hear. But enough of that. Moratorium starts now. All right. Kings, Warriors. We've got a lot to talk about with that one. One last thing before we bring Connor on. Want to remind everybody tomorrow playoff special with Grant Napier. He is doing his playoff special with Jerry Reynolds and myself at 7 p.m. tomorrow on his channel. If you don't like that, also he's gonna have Larry Krueger, huge Bay Area personality, on if you don't like that Thursday at 10:30 in the morning. So check that out. And then this Saturday, it's going to be our first watch party. It's at Bennett in Roseville. Come join Grant and I, watch the game with us. We're going to be doing pregame, halftime, and postgame coverage all live from Bennett's. That will also be on the internet as well on Grant's channel. But we'd love for you guys to come out and come hang out, support the Kings. If you don't got a ticket to the building, come watch it with us. It'll be the second best thing. You're going to get some great food, get to hang with Napes, ask him all the questions you want. You can make fun of me, whatever you want to do. So anyways, enough talk, enough announcements, enough minutia. Let's get to it. My guests are Brian Windhorst, Adrian Wojnarowski, Adam Schefter, who's the baseball one? I don't even remember. All wrapped into one. Connor Danzy. Con, man, what's up, dude?
What's up? How's it going?
Doing pretty good. What's your first taste of Kings playoff week been like so far?
Kind of just been soaking it all in, hearing a lot of mixed opinions on Twitter and stuff. It's always fun to see two fan bases go at it on Twitter before a big series. And it's the first time that us as Kings fans have even been able to experience that in the Twitter era, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm seeing a lot more Warriors fans come out of the woodworks now that it's postseason. Didn't see many of them during the regular season. We saw some of them at Golden One Center. But I would say 50% of the ones at Golden One Center for the regular season games are like casual fans. There's some hardcores there, but a lot of them are casual too. But yeah, it's been cool. I mean, did you get a chance to check out all the ticket prices and what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's pretty insane how much cheaper the tickets at Chase Center are, and I've been hearing a lot of fans and stuff trying to sell their tickets, and it's kind of been a fiasco and stuff. It sucks that the tickets are so expensive, but it is what it is. It makes sense. The first playoff game since 2006 for this team, so I understand it, but it's kind of a shame that not just the average fan can get out to the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, playoff tickets, they've always been more expensive, more sought after. I will give the Kings credit, though. Everybody I've talked to that tried to get tickets through Ticketmaster when they went on sale yesterday, a decent amount of them had success. And that used to be like 5 tickets were released like for each game. So it was really hard to get. So that's cool if you can get them directly from the team. But after that, it's astronomical. And I think the price will drop as the games go along, with the exception if we get there of game 7. But, being at that first game, that's the one to be at. I mean, Connor, would you rather be at game 1 or game 7 if you knew there was going to be a game 7?
It's a really good question. Obviously, a game 7 would just be unbelievable between those two teams, but I don't think there's going to be anything like the first playoff game at Golden 1, so I'd probably say game 1, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm game 1 all the way. Game 7s are a little bit too stressful in person. I'm not gonna lie, but game 1, the hardcores are gonna come out, and Grant has talked a lot about fans selling their tickets and whatnot, and I think he's looking at it from a different perspective than what I think a lot of people are looking at it. He's like, it's not going to matter if there's 5,000 Warriors fans in the building at game 1, like it won't matter if there's 5,000 Kings games at game 4 at Chase Center. Like the play on the court and whatnot and final result. But I think Kings fans are more looking at it like, no, like this is the Kings moment. Like we want all like the OGs, the new people that have never been a part of a game. Like, this should only be us. You should not be a part of it. And I think it's more of that than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a first-time Kings playoff fan, so obviously I understand that there's a lot of Kings fans that kind of left and now they're starting to return and stuff, and I think that's fine and that's great and all, but it kind of takes away from the pain and suffering that everybody else that's stuck with the team through. They want to kind of think that this is our moment and stuff, but if anybody wants to join the Kings fan base, I don't think anyone would be upset. I think we're a pretty welcoming fan base with open arms.
Yeah, we're not too bad. I can say when it was at the height of everything, with the Lakers, and I've already had people tweeting me about that. Like as soon as I announced this show, I started getting Lakers tweets. But when it was at the height, like it was never nasty. Like people were cordial, people were nice, except for the staff at the hotel that served Kobe the burger. There was never really like any true bad blood or animosity or anything like that. So, all right. Well, before we get into the Kings, yeah, that's what we call a teaser. The Heat tonight beat Atlanta in what was kind of a underwhelming game. Or excuse me, Atlanta beat the Heat, right? Yeah, Atlanta, I've said it backwards. Atlanta blew out the Heat. Heat tried to come back and they weren't able to, but it was underwhelming for especially what's a quasi playoff game. What'd you think?
Yeah, I got to watch most of that game, and seems like it was a game of runs. The Hawks, they came out to a big lead, it got up to 24 points, and then the Heat eventually cut it to 5. But then every time that the Heat came to knock on the door of the Hawks, they seemed to respond with a little 7-0 run of their own, and just seemed like at the end, Kyle Lowry was trying to will the Heat to victory, but it wasn't enough. But they'll get another chance in the next couple days to still make it.
This is true. This is true. Atlanta locked into the 7 seed now in the East. So they are your 7 seed. The two losing teams play for the 8 seed. So if you're wondering how that works, that's how that all goes down. So, anyways, the Mavericks. I'm in the middle on this. The optics are terrible. For those that don't know, they in the middle of a game after playing everybody against Sacramento and winning, they decided to basically throw the towel in, bench anybody that matters, and say we're not going to make a run at the play-in. NBA is investigating. What's your take on it, Conman?
Yeah, like a lot of other people, I obviously don't like it. It's just a bad look for the league. But can you really blame anybody but the NBA and Adam Silver and the commissioner's office for what's happened to their league in the past couple of years? We've seen it, like you mentioned on Listen App, with the Warriors and what they've done against the Pelicans this year, and the whole thing with the Blazers resting after the All-Star break, just a joke. And this one, I think it leaves a little bit worse of a taste in my mouth just because they were a team that played everybody against the Kings. Of course, the Kings are the team that ends up getting the lower end of the bargain, and then they just decide to sit everybody the next game after a quarter for Luka. Just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, when you have a chance to get in, I don't understand why you wouldn't. Obviously, they're trying to get this lottery pick, but I've said it a couple times. This isn't some 2003 draft class that we're walking into this year.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to keep a lottery pick. I don't think they're trying to get the number one pick, which is possible at this point. Anybody could get the number one theoretically that's in the lottery. But I'm split on this. Like you said on the Listen App show. I mean, it's the culmination of what the NBA has let get out of control with players resting and now teams saying we want to, because for those that I don't know if you said it, but the Mavericks have what's called a protected draft pick, which means if they have a draft pick that is a top 10 or better, it stays with the Mavericks. If it's 11, 12, 13, or 14, it goes away to the New York Knicks. And that's because of trades and such. So anyways, it's a problem. It's escalated to a new level. It's a problem, like you said, that the NBA has gotten out of control. They've let get out of control. But to me, okay. Like, it's not shocking. Like, I don't know. I know it bugs a lot of people. But anyways, and then there's the game that's going on right now. Timberwolves up 18-15 in the first quarter against the Lakers playing in Los Angeles. Rudy Gobert, Kyle Anderson, spat on the bench. Not spat, like spit, but they had a spat on the bench. The last regular season game, Gobert punched him, suspended a game by the team. Kyle Anderson punched a wall, broke his hand. And here we are. What's your take on the whole situation with Gobert and the Timberwolves Lakers tonight?
Well, it's obviously a bad look for the Timberwolves. I mean, that just shows the lack of professionalism when you're a couple days away from the biggest game of your season and you're having physical altercations like that on the sideline and stuff. I get these are heated personalities, these are high drama guys usually, and they both have the same goal of wanting to win, and sometimes they butt heads, but it should never really get to the point where you're punching somebody in the face. And then we saw McDaniels just punch a wall and then he's done. So just not able to control their emotions. And I think
that's right.
The Timberwolves suspending Gobert for a game, I know it's probably the right decision and stuff, but what if you lose this game without him? I mean, he's probably your second best player, maybe third. That's a big loss for them. And I don't really see any way that the Timberwolves win this game tonight with LeBron and AD healthy.
Yeah. So thank you for correcting me. It was McDaniels. You're right. That broke his hand. I actually think this helps the Timberwolves in this play-in game, and this is why. It spreads the floor for Edwards. Anthony Edwards needs space to operate, and when you have Towns and Gobert on the floor at the same time, that's a tight half-court set. Those are big dudes. And quite frankly, the two of them, even though Towns hasn't been healthy, they really don't seem to be working out, and it's really kind of counterintuitive to what the rest of the NBA is doing. The rest of the NBA is going a little bit smaller, or at least has. I know Towns can shoot the three, but they have bigs that can pretty much do anything. That can play like guards, and now they want to go back to a Twin Towers set. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. But I think it's going to be a close game. I would not be shocked if the Lakers lost. I think a lot of people would, but I do think the Lakers end up getting it done and getting into that 7 seed. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated on the score. And then your Sacramento Kings, marquee. I think, Connor, it's the marquee matchup of the entire first round, Western Conference and Eastern Conference. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a battle between that and that Cavaliers Knicks series in the Eastern Conference. I think those are the two series to keep an eye on the most, and it's going to be one of the most entertaining series in the playoffs by far this year. You got Steph Curry, he's a superstar. They're the defending champions. Klay Thompson starting to look like his old self. He's not obviously the same player he once was, but he's hitting his threes. And then you got Draymond Green. He turns into a different animal in the playoffs. And then you look at the Kings side of things. I know Grant said that they have Steph Curry and we don't, but we also have Domantas Sabonis and they don't. They have no one that has any chance remotely of being able to stop him. I've seen a lot of Warriors fans talk about Kevon Looney and how he's just gonna be able to contain Sabonis. I see that as not happening at all. No chance. And then De'Aaron Fox, Grant said that the Warriors, they're not gonna beat themselves in the final 5 minutes. I think it's a pretty good luxury that the Kings have Fox, who is probably the best player in the NBA in the fourth quarter this season. Obviously, we haven't seen him do it in the playoffs yet, but I still expect him to be the same player he was in the regular season.
Yeah, I do too. I don't see the postseason phasing De'Aaron whatsoever. Sabonis, you're right. There's not. I agree. There's not anybody that can really guard him. But what he's gonna have to contain is this right here, because he's gonna be matched up with Draymond a lot of the time. And Draymond is going to do everything in his power to get in Sabonis's head. I mean, you can put Looney, who's got some length. We know the Kings, Sabonis has had struggles with length. You can put him on Sabonis, but he's just going to be too powerful for him. And he's going to get into foul trouble. And they're going to have to play him physical. And if they do that, then that can risk foul trouble on their end. But at the same time, if it's a physical game, it goes both ways. And Sabonis needs to be very careful about getting into foul trouble. I mean, just like any other game, we say the same thing, but particularly in this season. And Grant, I get what he's saying. Last 5 minutes, these guys are champions, right? But they're also 30th in the league in turnovers. They're last in the league in turnovers. So I don't, I don't think that you can say they're not going to make a mistake down the stretch. I mean, that's to me, no. They are very vulnerable to making a mistake down the stretch. They've done it all year. I mean, we have to remember this isn't the Warriors of 6-7 years ago. They're still very good, but it's not the same team.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of look at parallels between the Bulls and their last dance to get ring number 6.
Yep.
I see this as the last chance for the Warriors to get a ring and get Curry and all them their 5th championship, because this is an aging team. Obviously, Grant said that it shouldn't really affect them since you have so many rest days at this point in the season with the playoffs, but they're obviously a very experienced team. But I feel like people put a little too much into experience and stuff, like how Harrison Barnes has been there and won a championship. That was probably 7-8 years ago, and he hasn't been in the playoffs very much since. And obviously, I know it's important to be comfortable in those playoff scenarios and stuff, but I feel like the Kings having a young team and stuff and playing with house money, that it could kind of work in their favor to have not really been in that experience before.
Well, you can't have experience until you actually go through it, right? And De'Aaron Fox never had an opportunity to go through it. And those guys have experience because they've done it. And I think it's more of like like the people that walk the high wires and they've got the pole. It's like a stabilizer for the fan base to say, hey, well, this guy has championship experience and this guy has championship experience as a coach. It like calms you down a little bit. But yeah, and the reason I asked you about the series and whether it's a marquee matchup for the entire NBA, I think it is, because you have these upstart Kings that weren't supposed to win 48 games. They're the 2 all-stars, you've got the whole beam thing, you've got the rabid fan base. You have a team that's going like this, right? And then you have a team that the Warriors that have been all the way up here but they're coming down. And that doesn't mean they're down. They're just coming down from where they were way up there. They're still the better team, and they are still the favorites in this series. But this could be the end of the dynasty. And this is not even close to a rivalry. No matter what happens in this series, this is not a rivalry because these teams are just going to continue being two teams, or two ships passing in the dark after this because they're going in separate directions. So it should be interesting to see how it plays out. I think Kings fans are very, very there's nobody in the middle, right, Connor? They're either super optimistic about this matchup or they're super pessimistic and already counted the Kings out.
Yeah, I've seen it's either the Warriors in 4 or the Kings in 6, basically, is what I've seen from a lot of people online and stuff. And it comes down to the Warriors' experience and stuff, but the Kings are a team that, like we said, they're young. They have the shooting to do it with Herter, Murray, and then I think a huge factor is going to be Malik Monk off the bench. But after that, where's the bench scoring going to come from? Trey Lyles, he's been in the last couple games of the regular season, but he had an overall solid season. So after Monk and Lyles, where are you going to get your scoring from the bench? There's not really any other guy that's there for scoring. You have Mitchell, Edwards, Len. Those are all kind of defensive utility guys. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, the starters, they're going to get a lot of minutes, high 30s, low 40s. So maybe that doesn't put as much emphasis onto the bench scoring, but still, when De'Aaron Fox is out or Sabonis is out, you're going to have to fill those shoes somehow.
Well, I think the bench, and you're right, the bench has to be more efficient because you hit the nail on the head. The starters are going to get more minutes, and if there's a team that is cut out for that and it's not going to be a shock to their system, it's Sacramento. At least when we're talking about Fox and Sabonis, those guys are used to playing 36, 37, 40 minutes. Herter, Keegan, not so much. Barnes, we've seen, especially these last couple games, he can still go at, 38, 40 minutes if needed. But the scoring, it's not any different than the regular season. I mean, that was the story all along. It was either going to be Lyles or it was going to be Monk. Sometimes it was Davion. If he, like 12 to 15 points. I think his top scoring game this year may have been like 21, I want to say. But that's it. I mean, you might get 5 from Len. But yeah, it's one of those things. Rotation, I guess we should say, because we're talking about the scoring. I think it's going to be a 9-man rotation. It maybe dabbles into 10. Do you think it's as tight as 8?
No, I don't, because obviously Monk and Lyles are the two set in stone, but then after that you can have the mix of Len, Mitchell, Edwards, maybe even Terrence Davis, although I think we both agree that he's probably not going to have a big impact on this series. It's not going to be, like Grant says a lot, your end of the bench guys, your 8th or 9th. It's going to be your number 1, number 2 guys that are going to win you or lose you games in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Kings know what especially these last couple games with Davis getting extended minutes, they know what he is at this point, and that is not somebody in this type of series that they want to turn to, nor will they turn to. I would be shocked because what the Warriors want to do, they're 8th in pace, or no, 2nd in pace in the NBA. They want to run. That's all they want to do. And when you've got Terrence Davis wanting to huck up the first look that he gets, no, that's not what you want to do. So I do think it's going to be deeper. I think they dabble into 10. I don't see they'll dabble into 10, I think, but it's going to be shorter spurts than we're used to seeing. So it's going to be looking at Herter, looking at Keegan, how they can hold up, getting, maybe 32, 33, 34 minutes every night.
Yeah, and I think another guy, I don't know if he's worth mentioning or not, but Chemezi Metu, he's kind of been a question mark whether he would be borderline rotation or not for the playoffs. Obviously, Alex Len the last couple weeks of the regular season seemed to take over all the bench big minutes, and he's done a pretty good job. But the problem with Alex Len, I don't think that this is a really good matchup for him to be utilized against the Warriors because they don't have a lot of size. Draymond Green and Looney. I mean, Looney's kind of big, but they don't have that big, tall, statured post player that Len is going to be able to combat. So I think a more athletic guy like Chemezi Metu or Lyles at the five could really work in their favor more than Len would.
So let me flip the table on you. Why not try to use Len as an advantage then, if they don't have that type of big?
And it's a good point because Len can create more chances, second chance, third chance opportunities, but in terms of having him scoring a lot of points, I don't think he has a very deep bag to be scoring. I mean, he's just a player around the rim basically. He doesn't have much of a jump shot and stuff, but it could be beneficial to have him out there to get those offensive rebounds, those putbacks, and then kick him out to your spot up shooters.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to score. I mean, when I say needs to score, like he doesn't need to, have 15, 17 points. You get 5 to 8 points out of him, but he's doing all the other stuff. I think that could be huge for the Kings. And as for Metu, um, I don't know what to expect with him or what to expect with Mike Brown because there were games when there were games when Len started playing where it was clearly, oh, they're giving Len minutes because the other team's got a big Andre Drummond, right? They've got somebody that just is going to be a nightmare for Chimezi. But then there was other nights where it's the opposite, where you think Metu is absolutely the better matchup, and he still was not in the rotation. It was Len getting those minutes. So in some ways, I think Mike Brown has been trying to get Alex Len ready for some of those matchups that may be more favorable to Metu. So I don't know how he's going to go, but Metu, other than those last couple of games, because everybody was out, he really hasn't seen the floor.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could say the same for Rashawn Holmes, but obviously he doesn't
Mm.
see the floor nearly as much as Metu has. And I mean, it's kind of a shame what's happened to Rashawn Holmes' career in Sacramento. A couple years ago, he was a borderline kind of top 10 center in the NBA, it felt like, with his push shot that was unguardable. But now he can't even find the court for really any minutes other than garbage time. And obviously, I think that he could be utilized, but at this point, you haven't used him in the regular season, so there's really no point in the playoffs. I don't see any way that he gets on the floor unless there's an injury to one of the Kings' bigs. So
It could be interesting. I don't know. It's weird how he fell out. I mean, obviously he's probably one of the highest paid bench players that doesn't play in the league. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, if they need him on a night, I mean, I'm confident if they were to need him, he would be able to come in and at least stabilize things, and it wouldn't be a liability. We saw that in the Lakers game earlier in the season when Sabonis was ruled out late because he was sick. So who knows? So, anyways, we're talking about pace of play, and the Warriors second in pace. They want to run. They play a little reckless. We even saw that in the last game in Sacramento when they were playing against Sac's reserves. And how does Sac combat that, or what do you think the game plan is going to be for Sacramento? Are they okay with that? Do they want to do something different?
yeah, I don't think they want to be kind of pulled into the hole of playing the Warriors game for 48 minutes because obviously I mean the Kings are a pretty fast team in my opinion. Obviously not on the Warriors level, but when you have the fastest guard in the NBA and De'Aaron Fox, you're going to push and transition quite often. And you talk about the game plan, I think it's going to be those dribble handoffs are going to be crucial with Domantas Sabonis to Kevin Herter and Malik Monk and Keegan Murray That's the part of the game that I'm really wondering how the Warriors are going to defend that, because that's not easy. That's one of the hardest aspects of a NBA offense to defend, when Sabonis just seems to make it look so easy with the way he can just kind of drop the ball or place it perfectly for Kevin Hurd to just catch and hit those off balance threes. So that's the part about the Warriors defense that I'm not sure. Obviously, you have Draymond Green, he can do it all on defense, but I'm not sure if he's going to be high up on Sabonis like that. It can open up a lot of other options.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the handoff is going to be very crucial. I mean, here's the thing. The Kings live and die by the three ball, which isn't a bad thing. There's a lot of teams that play that way now. But to combat pace, the one thing that you can do the most to combat pace is put the ball in the basket. And I think that pace is going to be so important to what happens in this series, and especially with the Kings going back to the three ball. This is what's scary to me about this series. We've seen where the Kings come out and they shoot 4 or 5 threes to start a game. Those are their first 4 or 5 shots. And, they a lot of times are let off the hooks. The other team has a slow start. It's 13-12 with 7 minutes left in the first quarter. But the Kings are going to want to shoot threes. And I think the Warriors are going to try to bait them into quick shots. They're going to want them to take that first look. And that right there is a line that could be very, very important to the series, depending on whether the Kings start taking those quick shots or they pause, run their offense, do the dribble handoff, have their different options that they go to, and make the Warriors work a little bit on defense.
Yeah, I'd say that the Kings have a 0% chance to win this series if their 3-pointers aren't going in. I mean, obviously, that's how they got to the highest rated offense in NBA history, by making their threes. But we've seen it throughout the season, scatters of games where they just don't fall. And like Grant says a lot, that's their backbone. They don't have a second thing that they can go to win games still. They don't have the post play necessarily of Sabonis. You can't just give him the ball every time. I mean, as much as that sounds like it would be a good strategy, the Warriors with their 3-point specialist, it's just, you can't trade twos for threes in this league anymore. And the Warriors are famous for going on those runs where the game's tied and all of a sudden you miss a couple shots, you look at the score and you're down 15. That's what they've done. That's what they've based their offense off of for years, and that's a big reason why they have a dynasty, is because they can just put you away so quickly, with Steph Curry just making unbelievable shot after shot. And then when you get Klay Thompson, and now we have Jordan Poole in the mix as well, who is looking kind of being training into being the third of those guys that can come in and make those shots, and maybe the replacement of Klay Thompson the next couple years. So that's a scary sight. If even two of them are making their shots, the Kings don't have much of a chance, in my opinion.
Well, I disagree with you there. I think that you can only have two make their shots. And when I say make their shots, not make every single shot and both go off for 50 points. I mean, within reason, I think you can, between two of them, 65 points is fair. If you keep the two of them combined to 65 and you don't let Poole go off for 25 and you don't let Wiggins get 17, then the Kings are going to probably be in a position to be competitive in the game. You can't, going back to Sabonis, you can't just go to him every play, but I think you certainly can run the offense around him much more, because you're right. You can't trade twos for threes, but they can also get threes. If Sabonis is causing trouble down low, they're going to have to send a second person. They're going to have to hedge, and that's going to open things up for the Kings on the perimeter, so you can play inside out. So we're all guessing at this point, but I guess the point is, the Kings, and I think we're on the same page, the Kings are still going to want to, they play fast, like you said. They don't play as fast as the Warriors, but the Kings are going to have to keep it at the Kings pace. You know, they if they can do that, then they are going to be in a position to win most of the games.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another aspect of this that we haven't talked about yet is just kind of the dynamic of how terrible the Warriors have been on the road and how great the Kings have been on the road. That's the big thing to me. Obviously, the Kings at home have been just subpar basically because for a top 3 seed, you expect to be much better at home than you are on the road. And with a fan base like Golden One and the atmosphere that is going to be at these games, you expect them to have a much better home record. But if the Warriors, you say that when you move into the playoffs, it's a different beast, it's a different scenario. Do we really think that the Warriors are going to be able to pick up 2 games, like Grant said, at Golden One, even though the Kings have struggled at home, which it's something has to give between the Kings at home and the Warriors on the road.
Exactly.
And I feel like the Kings at home is kind of the more likely to come out with the players being fired up in the atmosphere. It's going to be like nothing they've ever seen. So, and that's a key. I really hope that they can pick up both games at home, but obviously you need at least one.
Yeah, you gotta have a split. You hit the nail on the head because I was gonna bring that up, so I'm so glad you did. That is why Connor is the best. That's the second point. You have a team that can't win at home or struggles to win at home versus a team that struggles even worse to win on the road. Now, is that negated because of the travel? Maybe. I doubt it though. I mean, I think the whole travel thing, I've maintained this. It's a little bit of BS. The bottom line is travel was the excuse to say we want to play the Kings. We want the Kings. Because guess what? They want the Kings. And who wouldn't? I would probably want the Kings too if I was the Warriors. I think the thing that scares me, and you're right, the Kings struggles at home, and you're the one that brought the stat up. They're 29th they're 29th at home in defense in the league, and they're 9th on the road. And there's not a lot that explains that disparity. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense because they're a bad defensive team altogether. But the fringe of this is the Warriors being bad on the road. To me, I feel like it's not. I don't want to say they don't care, but to me, it's focus for the Warriors. The Warriors are one of those teams that, and they've shown this in the past too, even last year with their run. They're just one of those teams that needs a ticket to get in. That's it. And they know that, and they're comfortable with that. So looking at the Warriors, I easily can make a couple of assessments in my head to where I can, confidently feel like they could switch that around for reasons A, B, C, D, and E easier than the Kings can switch around their problems at home.
Yeah, it's a good point. Obviously, the Warriors in the playoffs, they're a different animal, and I think we can contribute that terrible road record to a lot of Steve Kerr resting his guys, and that's why Grant kind of said the Kings have the better record. But if you take off all those games and a lot of the games where the Kings caught breaks with their opponents, the records balance out a lot more in reality, and that's why a 3/6, it wouldn't be an upset if the Warriors win. It's the biggest upset it would be for a top 3 seed for the Kings since 1990, coming in as underdogs like plus 300 in this series. So that's a pretty big thing to bring up.
Yeah, you brought that up. You said 1990. It's a long time. That's a really long time. I also think in today's NBA, seeding is not as important or as indicative of what it used to be in the NBA because of the 3-ball, because of the way teams play, and because of what you just said, teams resting players, right? It's going to affect your record ultimately if you're doing that. So I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, I don't know. We're not going to break down every single game, and you are more than welcome to. I'm going to save my final prediction for the show tomorrow with Grant and Jerry. But let's talk about game one. Connor, you just turned on the TV. It's game one. What do you see happening?
Well, it's a great question. Obviously, it's a pretty big unknown with how long it's been since there's been a playoff game in Sacramento. So you're going to expect the Kings to feed off the crowd's energy in the first quarter. They have to come out strong. The Warriors are going to try to contain them in the first quarter, but I see it being an extremely high scoring first quarter and game in general, probably looking at like a 35-30 at the end of the first quarter, and the scoring could get up to the 130s maybe when it's all said and done. But I know it's the playoffs and you have to kind of take off some of the points because defense is supposed to intensify and everything, but I see this being a shootout. I hope the Kings don't get blown out. I just want this series to be where with 5 minutes left, it's a single-digit lead for either team, and somebody can go on a run and anything can happen. It's going to come down to Steph Curry and what he can do, and De'Aaron Fox. Does fourth quarter Fox come out in the playoffs? It's remained to be seen, but game one, I expect the Kings to win because in the big games at home this season with big playoff implications to clinch and to celebrate for this fan base, they haven't delivered. So I think game one's a perfect time to end that and finally give the Kings fans something to celebrate on their home floor.
Fair enough. You bring up an interesting point about defense and the game kind of being played differently, intensifying. The Warriors are 30th in the league at free throws attempted because they play so much on the perimeter. So it'll be interesting to see if they can translate that and, get to the line a little bit more. I think the Kings have been certainly subject to a lot of 3-point fouls this year where they've fouled 3-point shooters. And I worry about Keegan Murray. I worry not so much about Herter and Barnes, but Keegan's the one that kind of has me a little uneasy when it comes for, going for that pump fake because Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, they are masters getting you to bite at that kind of thing. So I could see him being the one kind of getting caught up with those kinds of fouls. I could see Malik Monk coming off the bench, same thing, having that issue. Davion, I think he'll pretty much stay Davion. His defense is his defense. But game one, I'm sorry, Kings fans. It's going to be a festive, probably top 5 moment for this franchise up until tip-off. I think the Warriors are going to blow the wheels off the Kings. And I don't think that I don't think it's going to be right from the start. I think it'll be a fun first quarter. Warriors probably have a small lead going into the second, but I think that this is going to be a one-sided game with the Warriors winning. I still think the crowd will try to bring the Kings back a couple times. Game ones are always a feeling out process. The Kings not having played in the playoffs for 16 years, it's going to be it could be very deflating and discouraging for this fan base if that happens. But I actually think it's a really good time for it to happen in game one, kind of like in the 2002 series against the Lakers. Kings lost game one, bounce back, win game two. And I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a split with the Kings ultimately winning game two, but getting blown out game one.
Yeah, obviously you take the more logical approach and stuff. I think I'm a little bit biased with just being a fan and being excited for them to finally be in a playoff game and kind of just get the big win that everybody wants and stuff. Obviously, if you're looking at it from that perspective with the Warriors' experience and stuff, they're going to have no problem playing in Golden One Center even if the environment is really incredible. That they'll probably even feed off of that, if anything, with especially how many Warriors fans. Grant said it means nothing that there could be thousands of Warriors fans there. I kind of disagree, but it's obviously not going to change the outcome of the game. But when your fans are showing up like that, it's obviously in the back of their minds, I think.
Yeah, no, it could be, and I don't think it's gonna affect the Warriors one way or the other if they have fans or if it's all Kings fans. They've been in these environments for how many years now and won championships. But the only reason that I say Game 1 is going, or I feel like Game 1 will be a blowout in favor of the Warriors, is because of what we've talked about all show: pace. The Kings are going to be amped. I don't care who you are. If you're watching this right now and you got thrown out on that court, you would be just juiced up and jazzed up and going with the way that crowd and atmosphere is going to be. And I think that the Kings are going to have a really hard time absorbing that and using it towards their advantage, yet not getting out of control and going too fast, playing into what the Warriors want to do. I think that's why in Game 2 they'll be, they will have gotten a taste of it and they'll see, okay, settle down. This is just basketball. But if it is the case, I don't think there's any reason for panic within this fan base. So I don't think there is whatsoever. So I guess I'm going to turn to you. Do you want to give your predictions for the series, or you want to hold off till later in the week?
Yeah, I'll give it.
All
I've
right.
talked about it a little bit. I've been kind of
We're
switching
going full
between
screen.
back and forth between what I originally said, which was the Warriors would take this series in 6 games, but after looking into it a little more and seeing that how bad the Warriors are on the road and how good the Kings defense has been on the road, and just kind of that expectation for the Kings to finally do something good and win a series. I've been going really back and forth, but I think this game ultimately could go to 7 games, and might as well. I'm not going to pick against my team in their first playoff series since 2006, so give me the Kings in 7, give me a fairy tale series, and why not? If you win that series, you have a really good chance of winning the next, and then that's probably where the Cinderella ends against Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals. But if you win this series, you're looking at a very winnable series in round 2. So it comes down to Steph Curry, De'Aaron Fox, the superstars. Can they show up in the biggest moments? And I'm leaning towards saying they will.
I love it, Con, man. I love it. Connor's got Kings in 7. And I agree with you actually about what could happen past that. And I mean, obviously, we're not gonna look past the Warriors, but if the Kings do get by the Warriors, this is what I'll say. If the Kings get past the Warriors and Phoenix gets knocked off before the Western Conference Finals, that is the only road to this team going to the NBA Finals. Would you disagree?
No, 100% agree. The Suns are the team. This is their, kind of like the Warriors, this is their windows closing to win a championship with the guys that they have, with Durant, with Booker, with Paul and Ayton. They're set up. They haven't lost with Kevin Durant on the Suns yet, so they're the team to beat in the West. Bucks and Celtics in the East. So if you can get an upset from the Clippers, it's going to be tough without Paul George. But maybe in the second round you can get it from a team. But that's really, I agree with you, that's their only path to the finals. But I don't think the finals is obviously, that would be incredible and everything. But Western Conference Finals, I mean, that would be a dream too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Phoenix did it a couple of years ago, right? I mean, where did they come from? All of a sudden, they're in the Western Conference Finals. I will. So here's what I'm gonna tease it and give you guys a cliffhanger so you tune in tomorrow night. So I will go up to Game 4. Here's how I see it up to Game 4. I've already told you they split in Sacramento. Sacramento will win games 3 and 4 at the Chase Center. Sacramento will return home to game 5 with a 3-1 lead in this series. I will leave it at that, and we can do another show after I do the show with Grant and Jerry, and I'll break it down from there as well. But we're gonna get ready to wrap up, but I do want to ask you this question. So much talk about Fox and Sabonis. I already know who I think is more important in this series. Who do you think it is for the Kings? Fox or Sabonis? Which one needs to be the man?
It's De'Aaron Fox without any hesitation for me, because Sabonis, you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to put up his double-double, near triple-double lineup or numbers, and then De'Aaron Fox, he's their guy at the ends of the game. You're not going to have Sabonis. He can dribble the ball up the court, obviously, but he's not going to be pulling up and hitting those big shots when you need a basket. That's De'Aaron Fox's mojo. It's his game at the end in the final 5 minutes. He'll take his mid-range jumpers. He'll get his Euro step finishes, and he needs to get to the line. I think that's a huge thing for him. He needs to get to the stripe and knock him down at a high clip. But Sabonis, you know what you're going to get from him. Obviously, he needs to be good, and he needs to dominate his matchup down low against Looney or Draymond. But if Fox, he's obviously not going to outperform Steph Curry, but if Curry's playing at a 10 and Fox is playing at an 8, I think the Kings have a really good chance.
Okay, I see you, Con Man. Yeah, I mean, Fox has to be clutch at the end. I mean, he's the only one, Monk to a degree. But if you saw anything in those last couple games when they sat there, guys, Fox is the only guy that can create his own shot on that team. Monk a little bit, but that was the struggle, especially in the game against the Warriors. There was not a single person on the floor they could get their own shot. They needed to play as a team, and once they started doing that in the second quarter, they played better, and it was only a 5-point deficit. So I'm gonna go the other way on this. I think it absolutely has to be Sabonis, with the caveat of exactly what you said. I mean, Fox is going to have to step up in Fox time, the Fox quarter. Mr. Clutch, he's going to win that award this year. He's got to be himself and, take control of the game in those moments and get to his spots and make the most of those opportunities. But the other 42 minutes of the game, it has to be Sabonis. And when I say Sabonis, it doesn't have to be him scoring every basket. It doesn't have to be, him just dominating the game. But everything's got to revolve around him. This game cannot have a Fox pace. That's what concerns me. You can't play De'Aaron's pace with the Warriors, because we have one De'Aaron Fox. They have 2 or 3 guys that can not be as fast as De'Aaron, but prefer to play as up tempo as that. So this game has to be at Sabonis's pace, and Sabonis can play up tempo, as we know, because we've seen that with the Kings' success. But Sabonis has to, back those guys down to a degree. He's got to get some people in foul trouble. He has to distribute. He literally has to be the epicenter of what the Kings do. And no more important time than in this series. So if we can play at Sabonis's pace, which means, you maybe pass up an open look with 20 on the shot clock for a better look with 8 on the shot clock, you do it. That to me is why I think it's got to be Sabonis. He has to demand the ball. He's got to get to the line. He's got to make his free throws. And he has to stay out of foul trouble. So, and the other thing, just as we said earlier in the show, we've got Monk that can come in for Fox, but who when I say Monk, he plays a different position, but it's somewhat interchangeable with the way they run the offense with the second unit. we don't have a similar replacement to Sabonis on that bench. And that's very, very clear. We've talked about it with Lynn, Metu, etc., Lyles to a degree. But Sabonis has to be on the court, and he to me is everything. If this can be a Sabonis type of game or a Sabonis type of series, the Kings their chances are very good to knock off the Warriors.
Yeah, you talk about filling Sabonis' shoes. There's only one player in the league that can do what he does, and that's Nikola Jokic, and it looks like he's
Yep.
going to get his third MVP in 3 years. So
Yep.
you look at Sabonis, I think you said it perfectly. Sabonis, he'll run the show the first 42 minutes. He passes the torch to Fox, and he carries the team in crunch time. And I think that's the perfect balance. Sabonis, you know what he's going to do. He's going to get his lunch pail. He's going to bully people in the paint. And then when the game's single digits and close at the end of the game, you're calling Mr. Fox. The ball's in his hands, and it comes down to him.
Exactly. So I guess I was going to wrap up with that exchange, but let's talk about this really quick. We get to crunch time, and it is Fox time, and not enough teams this year have ran a second man at De'Aaron. Like, it's happened a handful of times. I would fully expect for it to happen in the playoffs. So let's take, because Sabonis will likely be down low, or maybe free throw line extended at this point. Let's take Sabonis out of the equation and assume the starters are on the floor and a second guy is ran at De'Aaron. Which King do you feel most comfortable with the ball to take that shot to win the game?
I think it's really close between two guys, depending on how you look at it. If you need a three-pointer, if you need that catch and shoot, that quick rush shot, it's Kevin Huerter. But if you need to get in the paint and get to the free throw line and score a tough basket, when you need a basket, Harrison Barnes is the guy. He's so consistent when you can just feed him the ball on the elbow and he'll kind of just do that same move and get an and one 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I'm with you. I those are the two I turn to. I mean, I guess Keegan could be the wild card, and we haven't really talked a lot about Keegan, but in the times that Fox had a second person ran at him, or Fox when he pulled his quad hamstring for a game or two, specifically the game he went out for the second half, they went to Barnes down low for the clutch shot, and that's when they still had Sabonis. So I think that's the combination. I guess I promise this is the last thing. We're just having a good conversation, and thank you. I'm looking on Twitter, everybody that's here joining us on the crossover. Keegan Murray. So he's broken the rookie 3-point record. We know he can shoot threes at a high clip, and he is a set shooter. There is that you can't argue with me about that. He is a set shooter. He does not create his own shot. On most nights, that's good enough for the Kings, for him to be set in a spot, make 5 or 6 threes. That's what they need to be over the top. Well, this isn't going to be most games because it's the playoffs and things change. He's going to play more minutes. What does Keegan need to bring to the table and do differently on the offensive end and defensive end to, lift this team up and make more of an impact?
Yeah, I think it's huge for him to knock down his threes and stuff. That's what keeps him on the floor. You see, we've seen Mike Brown multiple times this year. If Murray's not hitting his threes after just 2 or 3 misses, Brown will sit him, and you'll see at the end of the game he only gets 15, 20 minutes on the night, and those minutes go to Trey Lyles. But I think the biggest thing for him to stay on the floor and with his extended minutes is he can't be a defensive liability, which we've seen, but you got to take into consideration he's been guarding a lot of the best players in the NBA, and they go at him. They're going to get their points. They're going to get their stuff against basically any defender in the NBA. So sometimes teams, they'll pick on Keegan Murray defensively. He'll commit some frustrating fouls and stuff, but if he's hitting his shots and stuff, he's he's really valuable to this team at the end of games. But if he's not, then I think Mike Brown will have to consider going to the next guy off the bench, whether it be Trey Lyles or Malik Monk.
See, I don't think there's as much buffer room there as there is in the regular season. I think you're right that Mike Brown, if Keegan was not hitting his threes, would be quicker to go to those guys. I don't think it's as much of a luxury now. I think that you still have to ride with Keegan a little bit longer in those situations. And for me, you hit on it. It's defense. He can't. We talked about it a little bit earlier. He can't get silly fouls where he gets tricked into the little veteran moves that the refs don't always see, or they don't see the first thing, they see the second thing, which would be Keegan fouling and rebounding. He can't have, if he has any games where he has no rebounds, the Kings will not win this series, or they will not win that game. And there were many times throughout the season where Keegan would have a donut right there in the rebound total. And there were many times, actually not many, a couple times, he had donuts in the scoring column. I don't think that will happen, but because I think the Warriors are going to be hyper focused on Fox and Sabonis and Herter as well, to a degree. Herter is huge on that, you want to call it a pick and roll, but the handoff that they do with Sabonis, that's his bread and butter. And we saw everybody gets on Kevin because he kind of limped through the end of the season. He had the midseason slump, but that was because teams started guarding him differently. They were face guarding him. They changed what they were doing on him. And I think he started to realize it and made some of those adjustments. He had a couple outbursts towards the end of the season. He's proven he can make the big shot. I mean, one of the loudest times this season for Golden One was when he hit that three. I forget which game it was. It was the second
Jazz.
Nugget, or is it Jazz? That's right. Thank you. Didn't he do it against the Nuggets too? The second Nuggets game?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah. But he's got to be big there. But getting back to Keegan, it's got to be rebounding on both ends of the court. And if he's not shooting a three, he needs to be getting into the paint for a rebound, a tip out, whatever. And he's been a little bit better about that on the offensive end. But, in terms of getting him to pump fake and try to drive and shoot from the mid range, we're so far into the season that it's probably not going to happen. And quite frankly, it's probably a better shot for him at this point being set behind the 3-point line than trying to do something different, because it's muscle memory. It's all those things for those guys. So hopefully he can, just do those little things a little bit more of the time. So anyways, if you are just joining us, I am Ryan and Sackdown. That is Connor Danzy. Connor has the Kings in 7. Kings in 7. We've kind of broke it down. I have not given my prediction for the full series. That's going to happen tomorrow on Grant Napier's channel. If you don't like that, Jerry Reynolds will be joining Grant. I will be lucky enough to be a part of that as well. And we're gonna do a playoff preview and break it all down, similar to what we're doing tonight, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. Also Thursday on If You Don't Like That, Larry Kruger will join Grant at 10:30 a.m. And then this Saturday, Kings game 1, first playoff game in 16 years, first playoff game at Golden One Center. We are having a watch party at Bennett's in Roseville. Grant and I will be there. The Listen App crew is going to be there. And all of you are invited. So come out, come have some great food. Grant and I will be doing the pre-half and post-game shows live from there. So that will be a ton of fun. I bet Connor will drop in, whether it's this watch party or another one, because there's going to be some more of them this series. So stay tuned to our social networks, or our social media accounts, and we'll be announcing those. But dude, I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. This has been a lot of fun. I feel like we could go another hour on this.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's just fun talking Kings basketball, especially when they're winning games and they're a winning team, and there's playoff games in a couple days. So should be awesome, fun couple weeks with the Kings, and hopefully the weeks can turn into months with some series wins.
We will see. It all. You know the funny thing, Connor? It's been 16 years, right, since they've been in the playoffs. You know how many wins it takes to get a championship in the playoffs?
16, is it?
16. Yeah. So there's some weird, funny things there. Game 1 will be fun. Mark Jones will be on the call for ABC. It is ABC's primetime game. They were out here last week or the week before filming a special on the beam and everything around that. So not a surprise that that's going to be the network game. I'm not afraid to talk about it on my channel. Mark calling the game. Kings fans, watch for this. It's going to be interesting. See if how Mark Jones calls a national game with an analyst next to him versus how he calls a Kings game. Because I think it's going to be a lot different.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'd rather have Mike Breen and that crew, although I don't really care for Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy, but to have Mike Breen on a call, could you imagine hearing his iconic bang after Kevin Huerter hits a three or the Keegan Murray chants? It'd be pretty great.
Yeah. Hey, have you heard Grant's story about Mike Breen?
I think so.
Yeah. So back in the day, when the Kings were in that, what was it, a 7 or 8 year run of playoffs, Breen was doing a national game. Grant was bumped to I think it was a national game the Breen was doing. Grant was bumped to radio, and Mike Breen pulled him aside, and he's like, and this is the guy, Mike Breen, who not only travels to every arena in the NBA for ABC throughout his years of broadcasting, but also broadcasts for the New York Knicks. He's their, local head there. And he said, dude, I'm so jealous that you get to be in this atmosphere every night. If you're ever sick, have the Kings call me. I will fly out to do a game in Sacramento. So you're right about that. It would be a lot of fun to have Breen on the call. That would be high energy and just great because, he appreciates the atmosphere. But, Mark Jones, you and I did Grant's post-game show after the Warriors game. And it was so frustrating to me because he was just a one-man band. And poor Katie had to just try to butt in where she could without being set up. And it's going to be funny because he will, I promise you, well, I can't promise you, I highly doubt he's going to do that with an ABC analyst sitting next to him. So it'll be funny to see the difference. But anyways, enough about the announcing. All we care about is the product on the floor and the atmosphere. Do you think you're going to try to make it to a playoff game?
I think I'm planning on going outside to the watch parties at Golden One for one of the road games just to kind of be in that atmosphere and stuff. Obviously, the tickets are pretty insane, so I think just being around Doco and stuff would be enough for me.
They're opening the building for the away games, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get a ticket in advance. The Kings used to do this when they were making their runs. They didn't do it in 2002. But maybe they did do it in 2002. They did do it in 2002. Excuse me, I am wrong. Because I was there in 2002 for Game 6. Yeah. They used to open up Arco for the same thing, and it's a lot of fun. So if you can get into the building, they just, especially now, I mean, imagine Arco watching a game on the little, comparatively small screen right there in the center of the arena versus watching it on the big screen at Golden One. oh my gosh, be a completely different story. But it's about the fans and being there with them. And I mean, it's not exactly the same atmosphere as a playoff game because there's not all the other stuff going on, like between timeouts. And I think the Kings do like bring the cheerleading team out or the Kings dancers, excuse me, and do like little things while they're at TV timeouts. But, it's fun when the game's going. It gets really, really loud, like really loud, like you're at a game. So go see if you can. The tickets are free for those. You just got to be able to get one.
Yeah, sure. I'm imagining something like what the Bucks have put on with their Deer District, or when the Raptors won in 2019. Just
Jurassic
all
Park.
those fans just scattered outside, going insane. I'm sure it would be a great experience to be a part of.
Well, I kind of feel like the Raptors are the ones that started this, right? With Jurassic Park, and to a degree, I think Doko was kind of they saw Doko as this idea where that's kind of what it could be for the Kings because it is set up perfectly for that. So are they going to have the game playing outside of the arena for you to watch?
I'm not sure for home games what they're
They're
doing,
not
but
doing it for home games. I know that, but for the away games as well.
I don't think so. I know they have like a bunch of fan stuff set up where you can like they have a bunch of activities and stuff outside Doko that they're setting up, but I mean, just to get into the building for a road game, I think would be the goal. And just even if you're not in Golden One Center for a home game, like I said, just being around that atmosphere, I'm sure there's going to be groups of people outside and stuff, hearing the roar of the crowd and everything like that.
Yeah, and by the way, if you guys are just joining us on Twitter, I see the numbers going up. I am Ryan in Sacktown, or Rhino. That is Connor Danzy. We have been breaking down Kings, Warriors, and everything NBA. We'll give you an update on the Timberwolves and Lakers right now. At halftime, Timberwolves 60, Los Angeles Lakers 49. 60-49. That game is in LA too. Conman, what do you think? You think the Lakers are going to round 2 of the play-in?
It's pretty interesting. That's kind of what we saw the Hawks do to the Heat in the first half. They went up big. It's been the kind of the underdog so far today in the playing games, but LeBron and AD in the second half, you can't count them out. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Timberwolves win, especially with that lead they have now.
Yeah, everything's possible. LeBron has 16 for the Lakers on 7 of 12 from the floor. Towns was 17. He's 5 of 5 from the floor. So that is an added bonus. Towns is having a big game. 7 rebounds. So there you go. Kyle Anderson doing a little bit off the bench. Russell for the Lakers doing a little bit off the bench, but let's see. We'll give you a little bit more on that one. And thank you again for joining us. This is the crossover. We're going to do some more of these as the postseason goes along. Connor, are you willing to come on a little bit more as the postseason comes along?
Of course, anytime.
All right, perfect. So Connor and I will keep doing some of these, and then, as you know, we have Grant's channel. Grant and I and Jerry Reynolds will be doing the full Kings preview, playoff preview tomorrow at 7 p.m. It's going to be a primetime thing. So join us for that. That's on If You Don't Like That. That's a YouTube channel, Grant. You can also get all the links at Grant Napier Show on Twitter. You can get the links from me at Ryan_in_Sacktown on Twitter. And then game 1, Grant and I are having a watch party at Bennett's in Roseville. Everyone is invited. Everybody except Neil. Neil, if you are watching out there in Twitterland, and I'm looking over at my other computer. If you guys see me looking over, I have computers to both sides of me. Neil, you are not invited, so please do not show up, Neil. I will personally see to it and pay out of my pocket for security to make sure you do not get in the door. But everybody else invited for free. come enjoy some great food. Come watch game one with us. Grant is back in town. So come hang out with him. And then we will be doing our normal pregame, halftime, and postgame shows on If You Don't Like That from Bennett's as well. So you can be a part of those shows. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're expecting a big turnout. Bennett's one of our sponsors. So happy that we will be hosted by them. So looking forward to that. And yeah, the Timberwolves still maintaining a 10-point lead into the third quarter. Now that we got all that minutia out, what were we talking about before we got into this? We were talking about Jurassic Park. We got onto something good, and then I forgot now that I updated the Lakers game.
Talking about Doko and how it's kind of been built for like a big fan experience like that and stuff.
Oh yeah. You know what I wish you could do? Do you remember during the COVID times, when fans weren't allowed at the building? Did you ever see the guy that was taking his lawn chair and he was sitting right outside the arena, like right at the main entrance, and he could still see into the arena and actually see the court? I would do that for game one. That's a fairly cheap ticket. I'm sure that security is going to be hyped up a little bit more and a little more raised for the event. But I mean, regardless of what you do around town, there's going to be fun stuff to do. But it's going to be funny to see how the Kings handle that around the Doko area. Like if they're going to mark off areas for ticketed people versus people that don't have tickets. Can they? You know what I mean? Because it's going to be a zoo.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, and obviously you hope nobody gets hurt or arrested or anything like that. But, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how they take care of that with people that can get in the building and how far around the Kings are going to be kind of governing that space.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you guys are going to game one, get there early. And I'm not saying that because like, oh, you want to make sure that there's no issues getting in the gates. Get there early to soak things in. I did not get to go to the Kings' first playoff game in 1996. One of my good friends at the time, his mom had season tickets and they got to go. But I remember it was probably one of the coolest moments, and it was on TV, and they never did this on TV. But they showed when the Kings ran out of the tunnel. And again, first ever playoff game in Sacramento. Every seat was filled, and everybody was cheering. They were playing Jimmy Page, and the place was just going nuts. And that was just for layup lines, and it set the tone. So, like, if you're paying the big bucks to go to this game, those are the moments that you want to soak in. And I'm going to let Connor give the disclaimer, because on the Listen app show earlier, I'm pretty sure he said it, but I'm going to kick it to Connor. I think he knows what I'm going to, or what I am talking about. Enjoying the game with your eyes and not your
hands, with everybody recording with their phones when the team comes out of the huddle and stuff, just to soak in that atmosphere and just be standing and yelling and clapping instead of just watching through your phone lens. And obviously it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, so you don't want to miss it by being stuck on your phone.
Yeah, it's like the LeBron shot to break the record. Everybody has a phone up except Phil Knight sitting courtside, and he just got a leg crossed like nothing big's going on. It's so much talk made about Golden One and the Warriors fans coming into Golden One, but you hit on it earlier. The tickets are cheaper to see a game at the Chase Center. Sacramento already travels pretty damn well when a game's important, especially like Portland, right? We saw a decent contingency up there, and there's a lot of Sacramento people that live in the Bay Area. So you're going to have a lot of them probably at the game. But I could see the Kings really having a large contingent in San Francisco for games 3 and 4.
Yeah, everyone's only talking about the Warriors and how they're just gonna take over and make it Chase Center 2 basically for that game, but we can't forget it's the same distance from the Chase Center to Golden 1 as it is from the Golden 1 to the Chase Center. So Kings fans are gonna travel well. I don't see why we're just brushing that under the rug, that assuming there's going to be no Kings fans there. We've heard all year on the road this season during the regular season the light the beam chants, so I expect it to be even more vamped up for the playoffs at Chase Center, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of light the beam chants at the Chase Center.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, let's not chant them too early, and I would caution Kings fan, any lead in this series, 10, 15, 20, don't get too high, don't get too low, because any lead is not going to be safe until that final buzzer rings. These two teams can absolutely score. What would be funny, though, is if there was a game, maybe even game 1, that was low scoring. Like, because sometimes things like that happen in the association where you're expecting just, a 150 to, 147 game, and it turns out to be different. So we'll see. It will be fun. Game 1 coming up. We've been breaking it down. I'm Ryan. That's Connor. Connor's got the Kings in 7. So Warriors, we talked about Poole. And I'm going to keep this going because we got a lot more people that continue to join. So thank you for joining. Connor, you got a few more minutes?
Sure, a couple more minutes.
All right. So Jordan Poole, he seems to be like getting groomed to be Steph Curry 2.0. Well, he's not going to be Steph Curry. There's only one Steph Curry. The same type of player. He goes through a very similar routine that Curry goes through pregame, his famous pregame routine. There's another player besides Poole that's returning. So out of Jordan Poole, out of Gary Payton II, and out of Andrew Wiggins, for the Warriors to win this series, which one of those 3 needs to have the biggest impact?
I would probably say that it's Andrew Wiggins, because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, like we said, they need 2 out of the 3 shooters if you add Poole to that to kind of hit their shots and stuff. And obviously it's an added bonus if Poole can do that, but Wiggins brings a different aspect to the game. He can hit the mid-range. He can get to the basket. Obviously, he's the big unknown since he hasn't played in quite a while. And then Gary Payton, I think a lot of people are talking about, and I've heard a lot of Warriors fans, they kind of just assume that Gary Payton is going to lock up De'Aaron Fox this series. And obviously, he can shoot the ball and stuff, but I don't see any world where Gary Payton is going to stop De'Aaron Fox. Maybe he contains him a little bit, but I think that their biggest X factor outside of their big stars is Andrew Wiggins, but it's also, he's probably the biggest question mark from any of the players on either team this series too.
Yeah, no, so I agree about the biggest question mark because he hasn't played NBA basketball in a long time. It's been a couple months. And he was reportedly staying in shape, which I'm sure he was. But shape is different than NBA shape, and NBA shape is different than playoff shape. Playoffs, like I can't emphasize this enough. Like, sometimes the NBA game seems really casual, right? Like maybe you go to your son's or your daughter's high school basketball games where the kids are hustling around and denying in each other's face on both ends of the court. And then you go to an NBA game and it seems more just kind of cash, like when you get to the playoffs, like the little things pick up, the things that you don't notice as much during the regular season. And so for Andrew Wiggins to step back in at that level, I think that's going to be a tough ask. If If he, as long as he is not, when you're looking at the plus minus stat, as long as he is not in the minus, that's going to be a positive for the Warriors. Because the thought would be he could be drawing, or he could, be fouling a little bit more. Timing could be off. The legs might not be there on the jump shot because he loves the mid range too, and he can hit the corner three pretty damn well. But to your point about Peyton, so I don't think anybody can stop Fox. But the thing, well, let me preface that. I don't think there's anybody on the Warriors that can stop Fox once the ball is in Fox's hands. But what Gary Payton has the ability to do is to deny Fox, to put pressure on the other guard that may be looking to get the ball to Fox. I think that's where the Kings could run into some problems, having to start the offense a different way as opposed to starting it with De'Aaron, or have somebody else need to bring it up because Peyton is face guarding him or denying the ball after a make, So I think that's where the annoyance is going to be with Peyton, because if you've not seen Peyton play, I would liken him to a Davion Mitchell. Defensively, not as good as Davion, but the style that he plays, the hustle, the little things. Like Peyton's one of those guys. He's not Draymond's personality, but he's got a little bit of Draymond in him, where he's that player that can frustrate you. He does the little things that can get under your skin, which all are full within the rule book. And conversely, he can do some stuff on offense. So he can shoot the corner three. We saw that in Sacramento in the last game. And he brings a lot more than Davion brings. So Peyton, I think, is going to be a huge X factor in this series, and he's the Energizer Bunny. That boy, or that man, I should say, he can go. Like, he does not get tired.
Yeah, he's gonna try to be a pest to De'Aaron Fox
Yep.
and deny him the ball, and he's gonna
Yep.
try to tire him out throughout the series. Maybe
Yep.
he doesn't do it in game one, but maybe doing those things constantly is gonna affect Fox in maybe games 4, 5, 6, 7, because that constant pressure and that constant just kind of push at De'Aaron, he's probably gonna get sick of it. And maybe it'll take a toll on him since he's never been to the playoffs before.
Yeah, and to me, that's not so much a playoff thing. That's just I think those are things that, had De'Aaron been playing in that last game in Sacramento and Peyton been matched up with De'Aaron, he would have been doing, regardless of it being the playoffs or the regular season. It's the way he plays. And that brings up a good point, actually. Talking about the way he picks up, the way he's a pest, the way he denies. Mike Brown, many times throughout the season, has extended the Kings defense. He's had them pick up with kind of a mock full court press. He's been a little bit more aggressive with it, and the Warriors, with the way they like to push the pace, again, number 2 in pace in the NBA. Do you think that's something that would be smart for Mike Brown to think about in this series?
Yeah, of course. I think any sort of half-court trap or full-court press or anything to just kind of make it more difficult for the other team offensively is a good thing to do. You don't have to go full force, full-court press where you're picking them up, but maybe just step up and don't let it be super easy for them to get across the half-court line and maybe force an 8-second violation or two, just to send them a sign that you're there. You're not going to make it easy for them, and that's huge for a guy like Steph Curry and stuff, especially with his range. You have to pick him up earlier than you would pick up any other player in the league.
Yeah, no, good, true, very true. I think, and we're gonna wrap up. I don't want to keep Connor here all night, and we appreciate all of you tuning in. The numbers just keep going up and up and up, so we will keep doing this. But what I was gonna say, Conman, is the Kings. We saw towards the last part of the season that they really struggled against zone defense. It started with the Jazz. Well, no, it started with the Toronto Raptors. And I want to say like December-ish. It was Sabonis, one of Sabonis's worst games of the season. Um, and I remember talking to Grant that night on the post-game show, and I said, look, did we just see a template for how to kind of defend the Kings, or, do something that can kind of slow down their shooting? Because on the surface, a zone defense seems like a terrible idea against the Kings because they're such a good three-point shooting team. And that's a lot of times what will break a team out of the zone is good three-point shooting if you're making your shots. But we haven't seen the Kings shoot well from behind the arc when a team drops into zone, and I still don't think that's something they've fully figured out. Portland, when the Kings went to Portland for that 2-game mini series, the first game that they ended up winning and clinching their playoff spot, Portland ran zone pretty much that entire game, and that was a game in the first half, and Portland was playing basically their G League team. And in the second half, the Kings figured it out. But one, do you see any scenario in which the Warriors may throw some zone in? And two, what's your comfort level with the Kings if they do that?
Yeah, to answer the first question, I think they probably will show a little bit of zone just to show the Kings a different look. That's what you want to do to try to stop some of the better players in the league. Just show them a different look, and that can throw them off guard a little bit. And in terms of your second question, being worried about it, yeah, I am a little worried about it because we saw that Raptors game. I mean, it worked well and stuff, and obviously this is a better team than they were for that game. But the zone defense, it's interesting because, like you said, with a three-point shooting team like this, a zone usually just is forcing and begging players to make threes, which you would think would fit right into the Kings' game plan. But for some reason, I don't know why, it just doesn't seem to work out. So yeah, I'd be scared about it a little bit, but I feel like they should be able to, in the playoffs especially, to make the adjustments and find a solution to that.
But if they weren't able to make the adjustments against terrible teams, Toronto's not a terrible team, but that version of the Trailblazers that night in Portland was not a good team. And they weren't able to adjust in a situation like that where the building was full of Kings fans. There's a lot of stuff on the line, first time clinching the playoffs in 16 years. Like doesn't that make you uncomfortable, especially in a playoff game and against a team like the Warriors, where now that we're talking about it, the Warriors are 17th in defense. Okay. So we actually kind of have the perfect storm here for the Warriors to play a little more zone than we actually think, because they're undersized compared to the Kings to a degree with their starting five. I think the Kings have an advantage there. They're not good at defense. They like to run fast and push the pace, again, second in the NBA in pace. And if the Kings are taking quick shots in the zone, that encourages what Golden State wants to do, and it takes them out of a man-to-man situation with Sabonis. So Steve Kerr, any of your assistants, any Warriors that may be watching that, you didn't just see this, but that actually kind of seems like something spicy that they may be cooking up.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Obviously, it may be a good idea. We talked about how Mike Brown being in the Warriors organization for so long, talking about maybe that he would have some adjustments or some secrets to kind of combat their offense and stuff. But I mean, you could say the same thing for the Warriors with maybe throwing that zone defense at them, and maybe it's something that that the Warriors are starting to catch on to because of what happened with the Blazers with such weak competition and what's happened with some of the other teams. Maybe the Kings do struggle with it, but I don't see it being maybe the reason they lose a game. I can see it being the reason they go on a little bit of a drought for a couple minutes. But I mean, they should be able to fix it. Like you said, you don't know if they can make those adjustments, but I mean, I have some confidence that they should be able to crack out of it eventually.
Well, yeah, and I want to say this. A couple minutes could be the difference in a game like this, playing the Warriors. Because do you remember the game that they just played? Do you remember the start of the second quarter? Start of the second half, excuse me. When they forced the ball out of Curry's hands. It was almost a turnover. Curry ran to the corner. The shot clock was running out, and it was right in front of the Warriors bench. And it was the quickest release I've ever seen in my life by a Steph, and it was pure. Like it barely touched the net. And that's what those guys can do. Like that's what kind of worries me. But adjustments, yes. Zone defense, I mean, it's very fun. It's fundamentally easy. You get the ball to the middle of the zone. And what the Kings haven't been able to figure out is one, I guess I don't. Here's where I'm at with it. And this is what I struggled with. I talked at length about it on Grant's show. Everybody on the floor is smart enough to recognize that it's a zone. That's not hard to see, okay? But the Kings continue to run their man offense against the zone, which doesn't work because in the zone, they're guarding an area of the floor. They're not guarding the man. And once the advantages the Kings have, they're not realizing it in the zone. So like De'Aaron, he blows by somebody. Guess what? There's a second person right there stepping up because you're now in their zone, as opposed to a man that's chasing him from behind and another guy that may be slow to rotate from the weak side. But if the Kings can just get the ball to the middle with either Sabonis or Barnes, then that everything opens up at that point. You got two people in the corner. You got two wings that can crash down. Or you have your two wings go down low and cut to the center, and then they can distribute. I feel like the Kings should be able to figure that out. So I wonder if it's just the coaches saying, no, we're going to keep running our stuff regardless of what defense you throw at us, or if it's the players really not recognizing it, because I don't see how they wouldn't recognize it, because it looks really awkward when you're running your man offense against his own defense.
Yeah, I'd like to lean towards the fact that they probably do recognize it, but I mean, it's an interesting point. But at the end of the day, I think you made a great point saying that 2-3 minutes where it's affecting the Kings could be the difference between a win and a loss, because that's what the Warriors do. They go on those little runs, and that's what can decide games. I mean, that was a great point, because in 48 minutes of playoff basketball, you can't take your foot off the pedal for even a minute or two.
No, not at all. And that 2 or 3 minutes in that game flipped it. I mean, the before you knew it, they go on a 10-0 run, 11-0 run, and then all of a sudden the Warriors are up 20-25. So anyways, all right, thank you to all of you here, by the way. We have been going, if you didn't know, for almost 2 hours now. We're at an hour 38, going on an hour 39. Timberwolves maintaining a 10-point lead in Los Angeles. That is with 1:59 left in the third quarter. I'm Ryan in Sacktown. That's Connor. This is the crossover. We will do this again. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We are going to call it a night, but as the series gets closer and closer, and as the games go on, we will keep coming on some of these off nights and breaking things down and giving predictions. Connor's already given his. He is going Kings in 7. I have given my prediction up to game 4. If you want the rest of the series, then you got to tune in tomorrow night on If You Don't Like That. I will be with Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds. We will all be breaking down the first round against the Warriors and giving our predictions on that show. So please join us. Also, we are doing a live watch party for Grant and I's pre-halftime and post-game shows for Game 1 at Bennett in Roseville. Anybody can come out, hang out with Grant, hang out with all of us. It's just going to be a big gathering of Kings fans. We'll be doing the live shows from there and just having a good time. So if you're not going to the game, come hang with us. But Con, man, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. It's a lot of fun. Anytime you need me, I look forward to these shows every week. So it'll be fun to
You're
talk
the
Kings
best.
basketball into the playoffs.
You're the best, man. Hey, I'm still looking for my Yukon gear, by the way. I know you won that bet, so I'll get that loaded up.
It should be a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing you in some navy blue.
Oh boy, you would have looked better in red and gold, but all right. So, all right, buddy. Have a great night. I appreciate it.
You too. Thanks for having me.
All right, for sure. And you all can find him on Twitter at Connor Danzy. Man, it's been a fun night. So thank you so much for joining the crossover. I usually do a daily crossover separate from the shows with Grant. Been a little bit tied up the last few days, just getting ready for the playoffs and getting ready for some of the live stuff that we have coming up. Again, a live show at Bennett's. Get together, come meet Grant, come hang out. Everyone is welcome except for Neil. Neil, you know who you are, buddy. So yeah, enjoy some great food, and it'll be a good time. And again, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on If You Don't Like That, we will be giving our full predictions for the playoffs. That's going to be for the first round. That's going to be a lot of fun. Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds. Again, that's on YouTube. If you don't like that, also will be on Twitter Live. You can catch the links as well on my social media or my Twitter at Ryan_in_Sacktown, Grant's Twitter at Grant Napier Show. And Grant is also going to be busting out a new shirt, a playoff shirt that will be for sale at our event. So anyways, it has been a pleasure. This has been a marathon, but a fun marathon, man. I could go another 30 or 40 minutes, and I appreciate I'm looking at the Twitter Live numbers right now. Thank you so much all for being here. You guys, Sacramento Kings fans, are the absolute best. I know it because I'm one of them. I've grown up a Kings fan my entire life and waited for this moment to be back where the Kings are in the playoffs and the Kings are playing meaningful basketball outside of 82 games. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait for everything coming up. And again, Connor Danzy, this guy is so knowledgeable. I mean, he's got a bright future in this business. That is for sure. He is a sports almanac. You can almanac. I'm going back to my awful call on Jim Rome today. Don't go listen to it. Don't go trying to find it. I got killed by the clones. I'm sure there's a couple clones here that are watching this. I told you I would not be making any more comments on it other than the comments I made at the top of the show, and there would be a moratorium. So don't go look that up. It lasts like half of the third hour. So it was a bad look. And usually it's a good look for me on the show. Usually I hold my own, but today was not good. So anyways, all right. So have a great night, everybody. No lighting the beam tonight, but that is coming soon enough. Hopefully on Saturday night here in Sacramento. Go back, tell your friends, subscribe to the channel. Always with the crossover, just so you know, I always put the link out for you to join the show. So if you ever want to come on with Connor and I, or you want to ask a question, do a call, whatever, you can click that link. Also chat in. You can do whatever. We have a chat. You can watch it on YouTube and chat. Tell your friends, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, or just watch here on Twitter. We got a lot of people watching right now, so thank you very much for that. All right, for Connor Danzy, I am Ryan in Sacktown. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Go Kings light the beam. We will see you on If You Don't Like That tomorrow at 7 p.m. with a full playoff preview with the man Grant Napier and the legend Jerry Reynolds and myself. 7 p.m. Be there. Can't wait. We'll be taking your comments. And for now, the crossover is signing off. So long.